I invested $104,000 and flew 32 hours to Victoria, Canada to have lunch with Andrew Wilkinson. He's the founder of private equity firm Tiny. He actually also founded MetaLab, which did design work for huge companies like Uber and Slack. And he also actually owns AeroPress, which is a coffee maker kit brand. In these 2 hours, he completely shifted my perspective about positioning, differentiation, among many other things, and I'm sharing everything I learned here for free. My name is Jess Meza, CEO and founder of Voadera. We sell hundreds of millions of dollars on online marketplaces like Amazon. And in this video, I'm going to share what Andrew Wilkinson taught me about building great teams. He has over 20 teams for 20 different companies, positioning and differentiating, and even competitive markets, which was my favorite, and the importance of systems and processes and injecting AI and automation into them as much as possible and how he does it. And thick to the end, I actually have a kind of funny, interesting story that really shaped my mindset and broke limiting beliefs that I had. Team building that skills. So obviously he buys companies for his private equity firm Tiny, and he's buying many companies at a time, and his growth is to buy these companies, acquire them, or acquire a large stake in them and accelerate their growth. And he says the primary component of that is obviously great people. So that's not a secret, or everyone knows that. The part that he does is his methodology and hiring, which I really like. Basically, what he does is he brings on the company. He does two things. He doesn't hire bottom up. So he doesn't hire specialists and then managers, and then, which I found myself sometimes doing. Like, for example, let's say you wanted to build a hub in the creative team. We would hire creative specialists and the PPC specialist, obviously the HR team. Rather, he actually does it top down. So what he does is he hires, for example, the VP of marketing, and then they build their entire department. So they're bringing in the advertising, creative, SEO, etc., and so on and so forth. Let's say finance, then the finance person brings in accounting, rather than starting with the specialist and then finding people. This does a few things. It lets people build their own teams. It's more scalable because you bring one person, they bring in 10. So it's much more scalable and much more leverage in that. But also lets the managers bring in the people that they like and the people that they know how to work with. So that's a big advantage of it. And the other thing that it also does is it speeds up the process, obviously. So you don't have and it costs much less money because let's say you have to pay a recruiter for each position. This makes it much faster. And if you're bringing in the person that you like and believe in, they're going to build their team accordingly, and you give them more, obviously, autonomy. And the person that he looks for to scale that department, he does a few things. He looks for an adjacent company. It doesn't have to be a direct competitor. So actually, one of the examples is AeroPress. So an adjacent company to that is SodaStream. You might argue that, let's say, another adjacent company technically is, let's just say, Coca-Cola. They're in the beverage area. But he doesn't do that because he looks for an adjacent company doing 2 to 4 times the revenue of that current company. So what he did is he brought someone from SodaStream, and then that helped him, and that person obviously brought in the team. So that's kind of a big breaker for us, because the person 2 to 3 times larger, they're going to understand what it takes to get you to the next phase. And that's a really big insight for us. And actually, one of the quotes that I liked about hiring and kind of litmus tests, and I have the quote right here, for making sure you have the right hire. He says, whenever I feel the need to verify and check people's work, I know I don't have the right person. And this is kind of a broader concept, is wherever you feel you're being pulled into, whether that's the marketing department or a finance department, it's probably because there's not someone that good in there. And that's happened to us. I've had to continuously level up the people that we have to make sure that I'm not needing to jump in and solve them. They're the SME, subject matter expert, and they're addressing it on their own. Positioning and differentiation. This one was absolutely my favorite. So he mentions how, I'll just use his example. For MetaLabs, they were a web design agency, right? Or even before that, they were actually just a design agency. And during that time, there was millions of competitors in that space. So what he he just changed his phrasing to product design agency. And he said that alone was able to differentiate him in the market. It was a red ocean. He was a blue ocean offering. So it's much easier said than done. Enter a blue ocean. You want to own a monopoly. Peter Thiel talks about it frequently. He built PayPal, was one of a kind. Palantir is one of a kind. But especially in e-commerce brand, it's much harder and much more unlikely to be in that blue ocean and create a niche of one where no one else is competing with you. Especially because it's been around now for 10, 15 years, not the start of it. There are brands that obviously we can take a Scrub Daddy, they're kind of one of its own. Now there's even competitors for that. And eventually, even if you have a patent, it could expire, trademark expire, competition is going to come in. But what you want to focus on is making your positioning much differentiated. Even if you do something similar, one example for us is we have a pet food. And one of our pet food, even though all of our competitors are also, it's sun-dried, right? our competitors are also that, but we noticed that that item based on the SQP was converting higher than other ones. So what we did is we initially had in the bullet points, we moved it to the beginning of the title. And that alone, our CTR went up like from I think 1.5 to I think it was 4%, honestly. And it like tripled sales just because we focused on our positioning. We also added to the second image. It was in the like the sixth image. So we started looking at all of our brands and all of our products and thinking, yes, it's a competitive market. Some of them are more competitive than others. Some of them are more red ocean than others and deadly, basically. But how can we position ourselves to differentiate, and what's our strategic advantage just to, from a marketing standpoint, to give us that UVP? Ideally, it would be very different, but even if it's not that much different, how can we at least position it in a way that makes it seem different from all the other 20 or 30 listings within the main image and within the title, like I said, or even within the secondary images and bullet points and premium A plus content, etc. I wanted to take a quick break from the very tactical advice and just get into something that changed my mindset. It might do the same for you. And this is a story that I mentioned in the introduction. So initially, when I went to Canada, I was supposed to meet him at the restaurant at 1:30. So I went, I got to the hotel, I was about to order an Uber. It was like 1:20, and I noticed that it was the restaurant opens at 4:30. So I was like, I got a little nervous. I was like, oh my God, did I get the wrong time or what happened? I emailed, no one answered. I called his assistants, no one answered. I was like, listen, I'll just go there. I'll just sit in a nearby coffee shop. I'm not going to risk his time with him. And when I get there, lo and behold, he's actually in the restaurant. So I was going in thinking, wow, that's really nice of him. He reserved this restaurant so me and him can kind of have a private time for us. And I go in and sit. And I was like, I insist on hosting you for dinner. You already taking a lot of your time. You're already being very generous. The $104,000 was actually charity. So that just speaks to his character. So I mentioned it 2 or 3 times, and he was like, no, no. And then I think he just got sick of me. He's like, listen, man, I own this restaurant anyways. And he says he basically bought it to support the community, a fun project for him. It's in his like family office holdings. But it was really a mindset shift for me. Is like, there's levels to this. For me, that would be a full-time business and we're running it 24/7. For him, this is just a side project because he liked the food, he wanted to support the community. Injecting AI and automation into systems and processes. So first of all, we have to start off with the basics. So there has to be systems and processes. I realize that we're relying a little bit ourselves on heroic efforts. We're hiring great people. They're amazing A players, but we're relying too much on them jumping in. They take a sick day off, something's random, whatever happens. We realize that we have to systemize and process everything. There's checklists. We're on ClickUp, one step after a time, SOPs, etc. Templates that we use to do something so it's standardized. Like, for example, we were entering new markets. One of the markets we entered into, the UK, it was just based on, okay, let's see, let's bring this in, ship a shipment in there. It was random. And one time, the supply chain team shipped something before the compliance team approved it because there wasn't a standard process and there was a process gap. And it was shipped in. It got held because it was a vitamin. There had to be additional clearance, testing. We had to pay storage fees of lots of money, basically tens of thousands, because of that item getting stuck. So that's where we standardized entering new marketplaces, a certain procedure, making sure that we do it. But beyond the basics of systemizing and processing is injecting AI and automation. So one simple example that he used in his Google Calendar, like he wanted an emoji. He just mentioned, for example, when he goes to coffee, he wants a coffee emoji just so he can quickly, when he's looking at his calendar, see what's going on for the day. And he says that his EA would consistently forget it. So he says he automated that. And we often, with AI being obviously a new shiny thing, we forget about automation, Zapier, Make, and a lot of different solutions. And I wanted to, when I came back, basically do an audit on what systems and processes we have, making sure that we have those. That's the start, obviously. But then what AI and automation can we add that into? And we're looking at listing, for example, A/B testing every quarter, automatically spitting new image options, and with Nano Banana and other Google AI options, and having our graphic designer see that. So having that as part of the process and having it automatically get started and sequencing. All that kind of stuff is stuff that we're revisiting as well. I mentioned earlier in this video about building teams. I actually have a video of the various teams that we have in org charts. You can check that at the end of this video. Andrew was a great guy. I mean, a really mindset shift, tactical takeaways that we're implementing. He also recommended actually this book right here. I'll get to it soon. The Tao of Charlie Munger. He mentioned how he was a mentor of his, and he passed away sadly, I think, earlier this year. But he mentioned how he had dinner with him many times, and the perspective and philosophical stuff that he enjoyed from it. So I hope to learn that from that book. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, turn on notifications for continuous video.